The Five Aggregates, Khandhas. Today I would like to talk about the five aggregates, the basic elements of the body and mind, of attachment. They are the tools that we will use to develop the mind to understand their true nature and accept them as they truly are. The five aggregates entice the mind to cling to and misunderstand them as self, causing suffering to arise. Each time the mind is lost in the five aggregates and clings to them, self or ego arises and tries to control them and make them the way we want them to be. This is because ignorance causes us to think that this body and mind will bring us happiness and permanence. But this just causes suffering to arise because the truth of the five aggregates is that they are impermanent, suffering, and no self. Thus, we need to train our mind to become wiser, keep objectively observing them, and see them just the way they are. Whether we practice vipassana or concentration meditation, understanding the five aggregates is necessary. They are form, matter or body, feeling or sensation, perception or recognition, mental formation, and consciousness or awareness, which is dependent on all the other aggregates. Buddha's teaching is about ourself, the body and mind, suffering, and the cause of suffering. The five aggregate system is a practice tool that we use until we finally let it go at the end, and the body and mind is a chain of actions and consequences of actions in samsara, the endless cycle of rebirth. One who clings to the five aggregates as sense objects will be caught in the beginningless cycle of samsara. The five aggregates are divided into two categories, physical and mental. First, the form or physical body that can be seen and touched consists of 32 parts, such as the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, liver, kidneys, and intestines, all of which are made up of the earth, water, fire, and air elements. Form, or the body, traps us in the world of samsara, and if we seriously practice, we will eventually realize that the body is borrowed. Does the body belong to earth? Both the food we eat and waste we excrete, both are the earth element. It seems unfair that food is colorful, tasty, and good-smelling, while human waste is the exact opposite. How about the air element? Hot or cold air which we breathe in is also borrowed and then returned through the pores in our skin. Earth and water elements that we consume go back to nature, and bodies are cremated in the air that we breathe. Human waste goes back to the earth to feed plants and animals, which are then consumed by human beings, and the cycle endlessly repeats itself. Are we breathing together here? The person next to you inhales the same air that you just exhaled. We also eat together, and those who consider themselves vegetarians may eat vegetables which have absorbed nutrients from animal bones. Everything on this earth is from the same root, which is the natural world that must be preserved to support our lives. Form, the body or corporeality itself, is a deception. Are we deceived by our appearance? We stand in front of the mirror and think that we are the most handsome or most beautiful person in the world. We are fooled by the appearance of our loved ones or things such as dad, mom, money in the bank, car, or house. Some people work to save up for retirement but never get a chance to spend it. Men fight over the love of one woman, or women fight each other for one man. Do we suffer when we are sick? We need to be aware of the nature of the body because it can trick us into doing anything, even cheating or killing. The body is always deteriorating and is uncontrollable and impermanent. Does this breathing body become weaker over time? Yes, it does, which is unavoidable due to its nature. Many people now have gray hair. Can you control the body? No, because deterioration is its nature. Just be aware of it. Do you feel pain from sitting too long? Yes, it is normal. Practitioners must understand the nature of the body, which is to decline, become sick, and die after it is born. Feeling includes physical pleasure and displeasure and happiness, unhappiness, and equanimity of mental states. Have you ever felt happy, unhappy, or indifferent? Those are feeling. Everyone wants only happiness and pushes away unhappiness, but they don't know about the multifaceted nature of feeling. Are feelings such as happiness, unsatisfactoriness, and indifference permanent? No, they are not. They come and go all the time. Most meditators prefer to experience a happy feeling, just like people who own a big house and want the house to remain strong and functional, but the more they want, the more they suffer. They don't know that feeling is a double-edged sword that can be pleasant or unpleasant. Just be aware of which type is arising. When the Buddha wasn't able to attain inner peace while meditating, he returned his focus to the mind and divided it into 5 parts. He used those parts to perform vipassana to seek the truth. We've talked about form, rupa, the body, and feeling, vedana, but what is perception, sanya? When we see something white, we know it's white because we remember the name of the color and recognize its appearance. When we see green light, we not only perceive green, that it's called green, but also remember it means go. Education teaches us to read, but before we can read the letter A, we need to learn and remember it first. Do we use perception when we pray or when we read? It surely arises during those activities. Sanya means perception or recognition that allows us to conceptualize. For instance, we perceive or recognize that is our friend, our house, and so on. Sankhara refers to mental formation, thoughts and plans of the future, good wholesomeness and bad unwholesomeness. The former includes all virtues and good deeds. The latter includes greed, aversion, delusion, and restlessness, or the 5 hindrances. The duality of mental formation is positive and negative. All of the 5 aggregates exhibit duality, which always alternates, and they are thus impermanent. Vijnana, or consciousness, mind or awareness, cannot arise independently. Its manifestation relies on the other 4 aggregates. For instance, we need a body to be aware of walking, breathing, or any bodily movements, and we are conscious of both pleasurable and unpleasurable sensations. But this consciousness is not the feeling itself. We can only watch the state of mind and consciousness through mental factors and forms. Cetasika, mental factors, include feeling, perception, and mental formation. Consciousness, or mind, on the other hand, is dependent on the other 3 mental aggregates. If the mind is thinking of good deeds or merit, the mental state and awareness are rooted in wholesomeness. And if the mind is greedy, the mental state and awareness are rooted in unwholesomeness. Consciousness or mind manifests simultaneously with the other aggregates. When we are inhaling or exhaling, for example, where is consciousness? What are we conscious of? It's at the breath. When we are angry, consciousness is at the anger. Consciousness keeps continually arising and disappearing in each moment and does not cease to exist until we reach Nibbana. At the moment of death, or the last mind of this life, consciousness or mind is filled with mental formations, thoughts, that will carry us into the next life, without exception. Some say their dead parents are not yet reborn, but they were. Their consciousness or mind has already been transferred from a human body to a ghost body, such as a hungry ghost or a divine body. The continuity of consciousness never ends until one attains Nibbana or Arahantship, where the last consciousness has no place to go, thus passing into Nibbana and returning to nature. Mental states or thoughts cannot exist independently. Have you ever done sitting meditation? While sitting, the mind sometimes moves from the breath to the past, the future, and back to the present moment of happiness or wholesomeness. At other times, the mind feels rapture or happiness and focuses on the body. This is the mind experiencing the five aggregates, and if we understand them, we can use them in our practice. The mind is the watcher or the knower that watches or knows all objects of consciousness, then come into contact with it and is able to separate itself from them. Most importantly, when watching the five aggregates, we need to understand that all living things fall under the rule of the three characteristics of existence: anicca, impermanence; dukkha, suffering, deterioration; and anatta, no self. We can't control it. Can we control the mind that swings back and forth? No, and we will suffer the minute we try to. The Buddha tried every controlling method, even torturing himself for 6 years, which didn't work. So we don't have to repeat what we know has no chance of success. The Buddha said the five aggregates are unsatisfactory or suffering. Since they deteriorate and change, they can never live up to our expectations. Are you still young and beautiful like you were when you were 20 years old? We must accept that change happens every day, especially mental factors or thoughts that are constantly changing. Our job is just to watch and know them. During a good meditation session, the mind may embrace happiness that arises. Some people practice because they want to obtain an outcome that they think is virtuous. Little do they know that such an outcome is impermanent. Practicing whether we experience inner peace or not is just phenomenon. Success depends on how mindful we are in watching the phenomenon the way it is. When the mind moves back and forth, just know it. The three characteristics of the five aggregates are impermanence, suffering, or unsatisfactoriness, and no self, and these aggregates play their role in every life moment. Consciousness or mind is the knowing element that happens with perceptions and mental formations. For example, when we walk to get food, consciousness controls our steps and our hand that holds a spoon, and when we see noodles, we recognize it. Pleasure arises, which triggers action for the arm to grab a ladle, but hot soup splatters on our hand. We then feel suffering and start to think, mental formation, that we shouldn't have reached for the ladle, but rather should have asked someone to pour the soup for us. Then once we get our food, we need to stop for condiments to satisfy our taste buds. Mental formations such as craving, anger, and delusion happen all the time, and this is the way the five aggregates work. You see, the mind is always occupied with the five aggregates. Thank you for listening. I hope you have enjoyed this Dhamma teaching and that you will keep practicing with formal meditation and also in your daily life. Keep practicing until you are free from suffering. Anumodana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.